Imagine Sal Mineo, a Bronx native who previously wowed millions of people with his anguished performance as Plato in the classic film Rebel Without a Cause. This narrative is about more than simply the terrible death of a Hollywood star. It is also about a journey through a life full of great talent, confusing and painful loves, and strange shadows hiding behind the shining lights. Because the reality may be more dramatic and sad than any Hollywood script ever written, leaving us wondering if we are truly prepared to confront it. First, let me take you back to the 1930s when America was battling to recover from the Great Depression and immigrant families from Europe were attempting to start new lives in this promised country. Sal Mineo, real name. Salvatore Mineo Jr. was born on January 10, 1939, in the Bronx, New York, a dynamic but tough working-class community. His parents had immigrated from Italy to Sicily, and he was their son. His father, Salvatore Mineo Sr., was a coffin builder, and his mother, Josephine, was a strong lady who took care of a family of 4 children: Michael, Victor, Serena, and tiny Sal. His father was a coffin maker. What would it be like for a little kid to grow up in a crowded apartment where the sound of children's laughing was combined with the sound of hammers fastening coffins from his father's workshop? Having a difficult upbringing was not easy. Sal Mineo, however, emerged from such conditions as a strong individual who was filled with fire from an early age. Sal exhibited a natural flair for performance, and he frequently related that rather than playing on the streets like other children in the Bronx, he preferred acting in front of the mirror, imitating the movie stars he watched on the silver screen. He did this because he wanted to be like them. Despite the fact that they were quite busy with work, his parents were able to realize their son's potential and pushed him to pursue a career in the arts. At the age of 10, Sal was given his first opportunity to perform on a platform that was reserved for professionals. It was in 1949 when he was selected to play the role of the Crown Prince in the well-known Broadway musical The King and I, which also included the illustrious actor Yul Brynner. Consider the following scenario. An Italian lad with large, round brown eyes and a beaming grin is standing on the Broadway stage, which was the epicenter of the American theater industry during that certain era. During the course of the performance, Sal not only received a resounding round of applause, but he also improved his acting abilities and gained knowledge about professionalism and discipline. Sal recognized Yul Brynner as an unofficial mentor due to his powerful look and deep voice. Yul Brynner instructed Sal on how to maintain emotional control while performing on stage. Despite the fact that they were brief, those years were essential in laying the groundwork for Sal's career, changing the little lad from the Bronx into a potential artist. On the other hand, Broadway was only a stepping stone. Hollywood turned out to be the true destination. Then in 1955, when Sal Mineo was just 16 years old, he experienced the most significant turning moment of his life. Nicholas Ray, the director of the iconic film Rebel Without a Cause, cast him in the character of John Plato Crawford due to his exceptional acting abilities. Alongside James Dean, the defiant individual who became a symbol for the teenage generation in the United States during the 1950s. Do you still remember that movie, a narrative about lost youths in a society that has been affected by the war? Sal's portrayal of Plato was that of a sensitive youngster who had been abandoned by his parents and was looking for protection from Jim Stark. Plato was filled with feelings of loneliness, desire for love, and rebelling against the confines of his family. Sal, who was portrayed by James Dean, exhibited a sensitive and nuanced acting style. The audience was moved to tears as a result of the portrayal of the character's inner anguish, which was so convincing. Scenes in which Plato stares at Jim with eyes full of admiration and love were examples of the genuinely combustible chemistry that existed between Sal and James Dean on film. Although it was a time when American society was full of prejudices and oppression toward the LGBTQ community, bringing such images to the screen was a progressive gesture, even if it was not stated directly. Many modern critics now interpret it as a breakthrough symbol for hidden gay youth in 1950s cinema. This was the time when the film was released. In recognition of his performance as Plato, Sal Mineo was nominated for an Academy Prize in the category of Best Supporting Actor. This nomination made him one of the youngest performers to ever be awarded with this remarkable prize. This nomination not only served as evidence of Sal's incredible skill, but it also elevated him to the status of a genuine adolescent idol. Can you even fathom it? The studio received hundreds of love letters from young girls who were lined up outside of movie theaters yelling Sal Mineo's name and sending them. Behind all of that glitz and glitter, Sal started to feel the burden that comes with celebrity. James Dean, his co-star, and maybe a huge influence, passed away unexpectedly in a vehicle accident just a few months after the film was finished, leaving Sal with a tremendous sense of loss. In later interviews, he said that Dean's passing opened his eyes to the precarious nature of life in Hollywood, where success may come rapidly, but can also disappear in the blink of an eye. He said that this realization happened after Dean's passing. Over the course of the subsequent years, Sal Mineo maintained his stellar performance on the silver screen. In 1956, he featured in the epic picture Giant, which was about life in Texas, and starred Rock Hudson and Elizabeth Taylor. In the film, Sal played a Mexican laborer, demonstrating his flexibility as an actor. Criminal in the Streets, which was released in the same year, cast him in the position of a street youth who was full of agony and rebellion. This helped to reinforce the image of the rebel child that had been established by Rebel Without a Cause by 1959. Sal was able to portray the great jazz drummer Gene Krupa because of the Gene Krupa tale. This job needed not only acting skills but also musical abilities on Sal's part. Sal was sought by filmmakers for roles that required emotional depth because of his appealing vulnerability as well as his attractive and gloomy look, which included jet black hair and profound eyes. Exodus, a film directed by Otto Preminger and released in 1960, might be considered the second apex of the period. During the Holocaust, Sal assumed the role of Dov Landau, a Jewish survivor, who became involved in the fight to create the State of Israel. Sal offered a great performance in that part, which was full of inner torture, ranging from the pain of loss to the need for retribution. Both of these emotions were there. The film Exodus was not only a historical picture, but also a statement about human rights, and Sal's character contributed to the weight of the film. He received his second Oscar nomination for Best Supporting Actor for his performance in the film. Nevertheless, even while he was at the pinnacle of his success, Sal Mineo continued to confront significant obstacles. After he reached an age where he was no longer suitable for parts of an adolescent rebel, Hollywood started to marginalize him. There was a lot of bigotry in the film industry at that time, and allegations about Sal's homosexuality circulated like wildfire among the industry. The topic of homosexuality was considered taboo during the 1950s and 1960s. Rock Hudson was one of the many celebrities that had to conceal their identities in order to further their professions. On the other side, Sal made the decision to embrace a genuine way of living in his personal life. Even though it meant putting his career in jeopardy, he was one of the few male performers who had the courage to declare his true feelings. He refused to adhere to the norms of heterosexual masculinity that Hollywood had imposed on all of its actors. Major roles increasingly become less important as a consequence of this. Are you able to sense me in pain? A young star who has been nominated for an Academy Award twice but is currently having trouble finding a place to call home. That being said, Sal did not give up. In order to demonstrate his adaptability and tenacity, he switched to the theater and began directing. Please allow me to elaborate on that shift in further depth. By the late 1960s, Sal had engaged in and directed a number of plays, the most notable of which were Fortune and Men's Eyes in Los Angeles, a controversial production that dealt with sexuality and violence. Not only was that play a piece of theater, but it was also a message to society. Although American culture at the time was still reluctant to discuss some themes, Sal showed a great deal of guts by addressing such topics. Not scared to expose oneself to criticism and to present tales that are genuine. Sal was resolute in his pursuit to reimagine himself as a serious artist at the beginning of the 1970s. Going beyond the image of a teen idol, he made a daring leap into the world of opera in December 1972 by directing the stage production of The Medium, a haunting short opera created by Giancarlo Menotti. This was his first foray into the world of opera. Detroit served as the location for the production. That being said, this was a big departure from the popular cinema roles he had previously played. Not only did Sal direct the opera, but he also played the role of Toby, the troubled, silent servant. Also performing in the opera was the contralto soprano Muriel Costa Greenspan, who played Madame Flora, a false medium who was full of problems. Can you imagine the situation where the music from the opera is echoing rather than using words? Sal communicates his actions only via gestures and facial expressions. It was a part that he addressed with seriousness and profound thought, highlighting his ambition to push viewers and transcend beyond his image as a young actor. Not only was The Medium a triumph for the arts, but it also served as evidence of Sal's diverse genius, which spanned from the world of film to that of musical theater. Even in 1975, Sal's enthusiasm for dark and complicated personalities remained strong. When Sal made his comeback to television with a scary part in the classic mystery series Columbo on NBC, he portrayed Rahman Habib, an assistant to a vicious and manipulative consulate officer from a fictional Middle Eastern country. The episode was named A Case of Immunity, and it was a fascinating episode. The episode, which was portrayed by Hector Elizondo, was full of political intrigue with twists including crime and diplomatic immunity. Sal's nuanced portrayal reminded fans of his breadth and depth as a character actor, which was a far cry from the weak youngsters he had previously played. During the same year, Habib was a man who was always plotting, and Sal was the one who added the required suspense to the story. He had a remarkable cameo part on the popular crime series SWAT, which brought him a lot of attention. In this unsettling episode, Sal played the part of a charismatic but deadly cult leader. He maintained a deluded worldview and exercised hypnotic control over his followers, which evoked striking comparisons to the notorious Charles Manson. It was a daring play that capitalized on the residual anxieties that American culture has about deceitful characters hiding behind idealistic facade. Once more, Sal demonstrated his willingness to deal with content that many other performers would shun because it is considered to be offensive. Sal's presence in the entertainment business was maintained through these television appearances, which, although not being blockbusters, helped him prepare for a more significant comeback in the future. After years of dealing with the industry's reluctance, Sal Mineo's career began to enjoy a hopeful recovery in 1976. This came after the struggle had been going on for years. The brave act he gave as a bisexual robber in the black comedy stage play P.S. earned him praise from the critics throughout the performance. Your feline companion has passed away. The play was initially presented in San Francisco, and it went on to address issues such as sexuality, vulnerability, and power relations, all of which were deemed to be controversial at the time. The success of the play, which was propelled by a surge of rave reviews from the press and feature pieces, revived public interest in Sal's skill. This was especially true in the context of the rising homosexual rights movement. It gave the impression that Sal was making a full-fledged comeback in which he was no longer constrained by his previous image and may ride this new momentum. As part of the production, he relocated to Los Angeles with the intention of establishing himself as a real stage actor who was not frightened of performing provocative material. This was not only another part for Sal, rather, it was a dawning of both his personal and professional interests. As an artist and as a guy who had always lived on the outskirts of Hollywood's glare, he demonstrated that he still had something significant to say about the world. After spending so many years on the periphery of society, are you able to experience that sense of hope? In the end, Sal was able to see the light at the end of the tunnel. We are now going to go on to the most moving portion, which is Sal Mineo's love life, which is a journey that is full of complexities, anguish, and wonderful moments. Sal first became acquainted with the British-born actress Jill Howarth in 1960, while she was working on the set of the film Exodus. Howarth was cast in the role of Karen Hansen Clement, a young Jewish immigrant who was the love interest of Sal's character Dov Landau. Their on-screen chemistry blossomed into a profound and genuine connection that they shared off-screen. Despite the fact that Sal was only 21 years old and Jill was just 15 years old at the time, their relationship rapidly grew into a tangled romance that lasted for years. The two had a profound affection for one another and a mutual comprehension of one another, despite the fact that their relationship was sometimes fraught with turbulence and emotional highs. Possibly as a result of the rigorous and isolated nature of their common job, both were navigating stardom at a young age, and their connection became a lifeline in the midst of the demands that Hollywood imposes. With bouts of intensity intermingled with emotional detachment, they dated on and off throughout their relationship. During the height of their relationship, they declared their intention to get married, which appeared to be a manifestation of Sal's desire to adhere to traditional expectations. Perhaps he wanted to put an end to public curiosity about his private life and find stability. On the other hand, the biography of Sal Mineo, which was written by Michael Greg Michaud, states that Jill unexpectedly called off the engagement after she discovered Sal in a sensitive position that was compromising with another guy. That revelation was a turning moment not just in their emotional relationship, but also in Jill's understanding of Sal's complicated sexuality despite the agony that it caused her. Jill made the decision to maintain her relationship. She remained a close friend to Sal until the very end of his life, which is a demonstration of both compassionate and loyal behavior on her part. Due to the strength of their connection and the mutual respect they had, their relationship lasted for a very long time. On the other hand, Sal made sure to keep Jill safe at all times. When it came to her well-being and the decisions she made in her love life, he behaved with an intensity that was almost brotherly. This sense became clear during the brief relationship that Jill had with Aaron Spelling, a television producer who was more than 20 years her senior. The disparity in age and authority, which Sal believed to be improper, was something that Sal strongly disapproved of. A sudden encounter took place at a private club in Beverly Hills as a result of the fear that had been building up. The moment Sal saw Jill with Spelling, he lost control of his emotions. Spelling was given a direct punch to the face while he was saying, "Do you have any idea how old she is yet? Why are you spending time with her when you are so young?" The event brought to light the extent of Sal's love for Jill, as well as maybe certain feelings that remained unresolved prior to the event. In addition to that, it mirrored Sal's inner anguish. Through his latter years, Sal had grown more publicly accepting of his homosexual identity in his personal circle. This was due to the fact that he was caught between his love for Jill, his own sexuality, and the expectations that society placed on him. When Sal passed away in 1906, he was in a serious relationship with actor and trainer Bert Courtney Burr III, which lasted for 6 years. This partnership offered him emotional stability, artistic companionship, and the tranquil private life that he had previously lacked. After some time had passed, Burr characterized Sal as a man who was profoundly sensitive, giving, and multifaceted, and whose public image never really represented him. Nevertheless, a shocking catastrophe occurred. Following his rehearsals for the film, P.S. Sal, who was 37 years old at the time, went back to his residence in West Hollywood on the evening of February 12, 1976. Your feline companion has passed away. As he exited his vehicle and made his way into the shadowy alley that was close to his residence, he was subjected to a vicious assault. The news of that death shook Hollywood because it was a direct blow to the heart. Shockwaves are being sent out to friends and spectators. A botched heist, a hate crime committed because of his sexuality or professional jealousy were all speculated to have occurred, even going so far as to involve big figures in Hollywood, the fear being that Sal would reveal secrets. At the beginning of the investigation, there were many inconsistencies, ambiguous witnesses' clues that led nowhere, and a lack of contemporary forensic science and equipment. The lawsuit continued for an extended period of time, leaving the public dissatisfied year after year. It wasn't until 1979, about 2 years later, when a breakthrough took place. There was a different robbery that led to the arrest of Lionel Ray Williams, a pizza delivery driver from Michigan who was 21 years old. Williams was apprehended in Los Angeles. During the course of the interview, he boasted of stabbing a well-known actor, citing evidence such as witnesses who saw someone who matched the description leave the scene. Williams was given a sentence of 57 years in jail, but many people were skeptical because there was no connection to Sal. "Nobody stole your wallet or any valuables." The sheer accuracy with which it was carried out suggested something far more deliberate, something that reached beyond the chaotic desperation of theft and hinted at a darker, more calculated intent. Williams acted on his own right. Is it possible that he was a pawn in a wider scheme, possibly a staged crime that the legal system hushed up? At that time, 50 years after Sal's passing, fresh records came to light. Records kept by the police. Documents from the courtroom. Documents that have been buried behind several layers of administrative fog. A critical piece of information that had been disregarded was brought to light, which suggested that Williams may have been recruited or employed as a scapegoat. According to letters that were circulated within the company, there was influence from organized crime and Hollywood insiders. These individuals wanted Sal to be quiet due to money disagreements or worry that he might expose hidden LGBT scandals. A situation that is even more concerning is if the police obtained early tips about a plot but did not follow up on them. This might have been due to ineptitude, anti-gay prejudice, or pressure from above. Even though there were discrepancies, the Los Angeles Police Department (LAPD) discreetly closed the file, following Williams' conviction in spite of the fact that it was riddled with corruption, racial bias, and poor handling of high-profile crimes throughout the 1970s. To modern observers such as us, the ultimate twist is not simply that justice was delayed for an excessive amount of time. Rather, it is that justice may not have been completely served. Williams is still incarcerated, and it is possible that he is the sole person paying the price. But it's possible that the whole extent of the case will never be known. This was not only a random homicide. Rather, it was a tragedy that was caused by fear, bigotry, incompetence, and covert intentions. The Sal Mineo case is a sobering reminder of how truth may be delayed, misinterpreted, or hidden. And the worst part is that the answers were purposefully ignored. It ensured that a bright light was muted forever behind a shroud of uncertainty. And it is a particularly disturbing example of how truth can be buried. A personal revelation that adds even more drama to the tale is now being revealed, which is the most spectacular element of the story. In San Francisco 38 years ago, after a few cocktails and a great deal of coaxing, I finally got the chance to meet Sal's nephew. He was honest in his statement. One of their gay lovers, a famous but secretive Hollywood actor whom they had dated for a few months, had spurned them, and this was an act of vengeance on his part. However, the individual developed an addiction to alcohol and became aggressive towards Sal. Therefore, Sal departed in order to exact his retribution. Under the cover of a straightforward robbery, the individual hired goons from the street to assault Sal. The unfortunate events led to Sal's passing. Because of their links to Sicily, the Mineo family and the Los Angeles Police Department were aware of the situation. In less than 48 hours, the thug was dead in a tragic way. It was 10 months later that the actor passed away in a fire that was well reported at his apartment in West Hollywood. It was all dramatized by the Mineo family in the traditional Italian manner of vengeance, and Williams with the intention of burying the truth for all time. In addition, the nephew provided some amazing information on Sal's family life. Every single person cherished him. Due to the fact that they were aware of his sexual orientation, they fondly referred to him as Uncle Sally. I was forced to make a solemn oath to keep the omerta, which is the Sicilian rule of silence, a secret because he was afraid of breaching it. It took me more than 49 years to finally disclose it, because it is necessary to be aware of the truth. More so in the more open world that we live in today. At this point, allow me to offer some serious insight as well as some personal remarks, mainly due to the fact that this narrative contains not just a revelation, but also additional levels of sadness. The complexity of Hollywood Sicilian culture and the challenges of LGBT people in a period filled with prejudices are all reflected in this work. In the first place, the account that was told by the nephew, despite the fact that it may be considered hearsay, really fits in amazingly well with the long-standing conspiracy theories that have been surrounding Sal's case from the new papers. According to what we know, there were rumors that Hollywood and organized crime, which are frequently involved in covering up sexual scandals, were involved in the proceedings. The fact that a well-known Hollywood actor who is secretive about his sexual orientation is mentioned brings to mind the continuous rumors that circulate in Hollywood about gay relationships that are kept concealed where reputations may be damaged by a whisper. Should it be accurate, the murder would be a tragic event worthy of Shakespeare. When love is sour, it develops into hatred. Revenge is like a fire that cannot be contained as it spreads. Particularly important from a cultural point of view is the Sicilian component. Omerta, sometimes known as the code of silence of the Italian mafia, is not only an idea from a movie. It's possible that the Mineo family, who were immigrants from Sicily, brought this history with them throughout their lives. The speedy retribution through Sicilian links conjures up ideas of traditional Italian vendettas in which the concept of family justice takes precedence over the legal system. This demonstrates a lack of faith in authority, particularly the Los Angeles Police Department in the 1970s, and I can't help but comment on it. In the event that the Mineo family faked Williams' confession in order to put a stop to the truth, it would be an act of safeguarding honor. The Mineo family is full of corruption and anti-LGBTQ bigotry. However, there was still another tragedy that occurred when an innocent guy, or at the very least a pawn, was allowed to languish in prison while the true perpetrators were dealt with in their own unique manner. In terms of his defiance, Sal was comparable to James Dean in comparison to other celebrities. However, Dean passed away at an early age, leaving behind a legacy. Sal was able to live longer despite openly confronting stereotypes similar to Rock Hudson, who concealed his homosexuality until the moment he passed away from AIDS. However, Sal lived his life in a more genuine manner, and he paid the price with his job. Sal was a pioneer in the context of the homosexual rights movement for a number of reasons, beginning with the Stonewall riots in 1969 and continuing through the progressive openness of the 1970s. He was a representative of a generation that chose to fight in silence even if he did not do it as openly as succeeding characters. In addition, his story demonstrates how society and the legal system failed to protect them. As a result of my studies on Sal Mineo, I am experiencing a profound sense of melancholy. In addition to being a victim of abuse, he was also a victim of a culture that refused to accept him without question. However, the moniker Uncle Sally demonstrates the affection that he has for his family, which is a touching contrast to his seclusion in Hollywood. The power of secrets and dread is demonstrated by the fact that the nephew is afraid of breaking Omerta, and that I have been waiting for 49 years. On the other hand, in the year 2025, when LGBTQ+ rights have made significant strides, this discovery is like a way to memorialize Sal not as a victim, but as a courageous guy who lived his life out in the shadows. It serves as a reminder that the truth, regardless of how unpleasant it may be, must be unveiled in order to avoid causing controversy. However, in order to bring about genuine closure, Sal should be allowed to rest in peace. And his narrative tells us about the importance of having bravery, particularly for those of you who have been witnesses to the transformations that society has seen over the course of the decades. Continued consideration of Sal's legacy in Rebel Without a Cause is something we should do. Jim holds Plato as he passes away, which is a metaphor for the isolation of an entire age. Sal's life was a reflection of that. His later parts, such as the one he played in Exodus, demonstrated his concern for social causes ranging from the Holocaust to civil rights. He was lonely during his time in Hollywood, but he found love in his family and friends. Possibly Sal might have been an advocate for gay rights if he had lived for a longer period of time. His story, like that of Harvey Milk, brings to light concerns pertaining to justice. A young black man named Williams was punished under a system that was skewed against people of color. He was maybe another victim of the plot. We can see that the matter is still being argued and that it is being called for re-examination because of documentaries such as Unseen Innocence, which are about Williams. What do you think? Feel free to comment below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more real stories behind the legends of Hollywood's golden age. Thanks for watching. See you next time.